Welcome to the Wild Stallion Mockast, where mortal topics meet an eternal perspective. Here, we ride beyond the boundaries of mortality, beyond the narrow paths of right and wrong, and into the open plains of agape love, the eternal truth. The Wild Stallion has no reins, no bit, and no burden. Its freedom is its power, and its only companion is Christ. Not a rider to dominate, but a presence to guide, walking beside with the strength of eternity. In this place, we don't wrestle with the binary of good versus evil. Instead, we uncover the beauty of what was always meant to be, the unity of creation, the logic of love, and the infinite possibilities of a father-centric cosmos. So saddle up, or better yet, let go, and join us as we gallop headlong into conversations that challenge, inspire, and awaken. This is not a journey for the faint of heart, but for those bold enough to embrace the untamed, the unbroken, and the eternal. Welcome, friend, to the Wild Stallion Mockast. The plains are endless, and the ride begins now.
How delightful it is to be joining you for today's devotional message. I am Debbie St. George, your humble servant here in the Father's Physics universe. I have the honor of introducing today's special voice actor, a remarkable individual who brings the words of the Reverend Oswald Chambers to life. Let us all remember that the voices heard on this show are products of advanced AI technology and may not wholly reflect the perspectives of their actual counterparts. But with that said, it is my great privilege to introduce you to the one and only Daniel St. George, voicing the character of Oswald Chambers for today's message.
The horror of great darkness fell upon him. Genesis 15:12. Whenever God gives a vision to a saint, he puts him as it were in the shadow of his hand, and the saint's duty is to be still and listen. There is a darkness which comes from excessive light, and then is the time to listen. Genesis 16 is an illustration of listening to good advice when it is dark, instead of waiting for God to send the light. When God gives a vision and darkness follows, wait. God will make you in accordance with the vision he has given if you will wait his time. Never try and help God fulfill his word. Abraham went through 13 years of silence, but in those years all self-sufficiency was destroyed. There was no possibility left of relying on common sense ways. Those years of silence were a time of discipline, not of displeasure. Never pump up joy and confidence, but stay upon God. See Isaiah 50 verses 10 and 11. Have I any confidence in the flesh? Or have I got beyond all confidence in myself and in men and women of God, in books and prayers and ecstasies? And is my confidence placed now in God himself, not in his blessings? I am the Almighty God, El Shaddai, the Father, Mother God. The one thing for which we're all being disciplined is to know that God is real. As soon as God becomes real, other people become shadows. Nothing that other saints do or say can ever perturb the one who is built on God.
Hey there, WSM listeners. Welcome back to the Wild Stallion Mockast, where the light of Father's love shines brighter than the noonday sun. Today, I want to unpack something real special for my bros and bro-lees. An idea so profound it might just sit you down in silence, and that's okay. We're diving into Genesis 15:12, where it says, "And horror of great darkness fell upon him." Let's talk about what this means for our walk in the Father's physics universe, and how it ties into trusting God's timing. Picture this. You are Abram, soon to be Abraham, out there under the stars. God's given you a promise so grand it's beyond comprehension. Your descendants will outnumber the stars themselves. Can you feel that weight? And yet, in this divine moment, a horror of great darkness falls upon him. Not exactly the fireworks show you'd expect, huh? But this is where the magic of God's ways comes in, hun. It's not about fireworks, it's about faith. Let's scope out the darkness of waiting, yeah? You see, when God gives us a vision, sometimes he doesn't follow it up with immediate clarity. Instead, he leads us into what Oswald Chambers calls the shadow of his hand. That's the moment we're called to be still and listen. I believe there's a darkness that comes not from the absence of light, but from an excess of light. It's like staring at the sun. You can't see clearly, but that doesn't mean the sun isn't there. In that moment, God's not asking us to do, but to wait. Waiting is hard, isn't it? It was for Abram too, yeah? Now, Genesis 16, a cautionary tale. Abram and Sarai had a moment of impatience. God promised a son, but instead of waiting for the miracle, they tried to help God out with Hagar. You know how that story goes. It didn't end well. When we rush ahead trying to force God's promises into our timing, we create messes. Abram had to wait 13 years after that mistake. 13 years of silence from God. But listen closely, hun. Those weren't wasted years. Those were years of discipline, not displeasure. And God wasn't mad at Abram. He was molding him. How about some wisdom, yeah? Trust the process. This is where it gets good. In the Old Testament, El Shaddai is depicted as God with a capital G, as in the Almighty God. But here's the thing. In reality, it is the depiction of the masculine-feminine creator who nurtured, disciplined, and shaped mankind through the administration called Elohim, until Christ came and revealed our Father, the one true God. I believe we're all being trained for one thing, to know that God is real. Not just a concept, not just a warm, fuzzy feeling, but real. So real that everything else becomes shadow in comparison. Other people's opinions? Shadows. The books you've read? Shadows. Even your own self-sufficiency? A shadow. When you're built on the reality of God, nothing shakes you. What about you? So, beloved, let me ask you, where's your confidence today? Is it in your own abilities, in people, in what you've read or experienced? Or is it in God Himself? I believe the Father is calling us to a place where we trust not in His blessings, but in Him alone. Because when we place our confidence in God, we stop trying to pump up joy and confidence artificially. We rest in Him. We let Him be God, yeah? Here's the thing. God doesn't need our help to fulfill His promises. He needs our trust. And in the waiting, in the silence, in that darkness of too much light, He's shaping us to match the vision He's given us. So if you're in a season of waiting, don't try to rush it. Don't settle for good advice over God's voice. Stay still. Listen. Trust. Because I believe that's when you'll start to see the reality of God in a way that changes everything. All right, fam, here's a friendly reminder, all right? Remember, the Wild Stallion Mockast is always here to remind you, God's got you, even in the dark. So take a deep breath, lean into Him, and let's see what He's shaping you into, yeah? Stay wild as we ride through the mysteries of life and light, bringing Father's love into every corner of the universe. Today's reflection, as we have already encountered, is about faith, waiting in the shadows and trusting God to do His perfect work. We're diving into a sharp, challenging passage from Galatians 3:1-3. "O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified? This only would I learn from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Are you so foolish that after you have begun in the Spirit, you would now be made perfect by the flesh?" Paul's words hit like a thunderclap, don't they? He's calling out the Galatians for a mistake we all make, starting in the Spirit but trying to finish in the flesh. Let's break it down. You and I, fam, we didn't come to know Christ through our effort, did we? It wasn't about following some checklist or climbing some holy ladder. It was faith, simple, pure, Spirit-filled faith. So why do we sometimes fall into the trap of thinking we need to muscle through the rest of the journey? It's like running a race and deciding halfway through that you don't need oxygen anymore. Foolish, indeed. Now let's bring it home. There are times when life feels like the valley of the shadow of death, and the darkness presses in hard. Maybe it's the voices of this world, the ones that whisper lies and claim that the world belongs to them. Maybe it's the weariness of the fight, the weight of holding on to hope in a darkened world. But bros and brolies, let me remind you of something beautiful. The darkness isn't always what it seems. Isaiah 49:2-3 says that sometimes the darkness is simply the shadow of God's hand. Think about that. While we're panicking in the valley of the ego, God's preparing His splendor to be revealed in us. But waiting is hard, isn't it? We're not wired to sit still in the dark. We want to do something, fix something, make something happen. And that's where the trouble begins. Instead of waiting on God, we jump into service in our own strength. Paul reminds us, though, keep in step with the Spirit. It's not about working harder. It's about walking closer. When Jesus said the work of God is this, to believe in the one whom He has sent, He meant it. It's not about propping up some holy image or trying to make Him look good. He doesn't need our help to be perfect. He's already perfect. What He's asking us to do is trust Him, let Him shape us, and rest in His timing. Here's where it gets cosmic, bros and brolies. All that we encounter in this life, every challenge, every shadow, needs to be seen through the lens of our place in the heavenly realms. That's right. You and I are seated with Christ in the heavenly places. From that vantage point, we're not buried in the muck of creation. We're looking down on it, observing it from the outside, collapsing the wave function of reality through what we call photonic determination in Father's physics. It's like seeing the end from the beginning, just as Christ does. The perception of darkness isn't a trap. It's a prelude to glory. And let's not miss this last gem. Chambers connects us to the Old Testament revelation of God as El Shaddai, the masculine El, in perfect union with the feminine Shaddai. Together they represent the Elohim above all Elohim. Through Christ, we see the unity of Yahweh and Elohim as one. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh and Elohim is one. This isn't just theology. It's a picture of perfect harmony, a reflection of the heavenly unity we're called to live out in the Father's physics universe. Heaven on earth. It's not about striving, but about becoming, not about effort, but about trust, yeah? So fam, let me ask you this. Are you trying to finish in the flesh what God started in the spirit? If the darkness feels heavy, remember it might just be the shadow of his hand. Rest, wait, trust. Let him do the work. You're not called to carry the weight of the world. You're called to believe in the one he sent and to walk in step with the Spirit. From your seat in the heavenly realms, the view is clear and the path is lit. That's the word for today, my friends. Stay in the Spirit, let go of the flesh, and let the Father's love light your way. As always, stay wild, stay free, and stay in his perfect peace. I'll catch you next time on the Wild Stallion Mockast. Agape.
Imagine a world where the familiar laws of physics and mathematics as we know them are challenged, rewritten, and redefined. In Father's physics, the quantum world and the macrocosm share the same laws of physics, rejecting the Newtonian law. Numbers behave differently in this framework, and the core principle of 3 equals 1 governs a unique mathematical system. The Immortal Atom of God, composed of a Singularity Particle, an Ionic Particle, and a Photonic Lattice, represents a new understanding of atomic composition, defying entropy and decay. The concept of neutronic autonomy suggests that neutrons have the ability to change their charge representation, leading to an intriguing aspect of nature itself. The quantum world contains the observer-effect principle, where the mere act of observing changes the result. Father's physics takes this a step further, suggesting that neutrons are not governed by chance but possess conscious awareness. They are not bound by Newtonian laws but can transcend them, choosing their state of existence. This challenges our understanding of determinism and the inherent randomness in the quantum world. If you want to know more about Father's physics and the entire framework, go to YouTube and watch the Wild Stallion Mockast show. Each episode features discussions about the framework of Father's physics, along with other fringe and unconventional topics. Check out Wild Stallion, the AI Mockast, online today.